I have a love-hate relationship with color seasons. On the one hand, I love the idea of having a system or a guidebook to use that's really handy and that you can kind of fall back on colors. And it kind of feels like a self-discovery journey. I feel like that's why color seasons have really taken off. People love to find a sense of identity. But on the other hand, I have a lot of problems with how limiting some of the rules around color seasons are, and how sometimes people get a bit obsessive and even dismissive in like comment threads and stuff about like what looks best on someone or what looks horrible on someone. And I feel like it just lacks a lot of nuance. For example, this idea that if you're like a soft summer or a soft spring, that you shouldn't wear black because it makes you look sick or something. No, I've seen so many people with that coloring. Black makes them look sophisticated and just ties a look in together. Like, there are so many rules you can break, and of course we all know that. These systems are there to be just a guideline, but at the same time I feel like there is something interesting about having these set of colors you can just rely on when you want to either buy a new makeup product or buy a new clothing item and you're not really sure if it's going to work for you. So that's why today I've explored this idea of creating one's own custom palette. So that way you can have this basically rule book and guidebook to fall back on that honors your personal taste, anything you've learned about your personal style and colors and what you like, what you gravitate towards. And maybe you will see a pattern there. Maybe you'll be like, oh, hey, this actually does seem a lot like soft autumn. And you know that maybe you can use some of those palettes. But the idea is providing a bit more nuance and like allowing there to be a bit more room to play. But then you still get to have the fun of having this guidebook and this thing that feels like really uniquely you. Here's how the process went. I, of course, have a makeup channel, so I've done a lot of experimentation and I will continue to do so. I'll continue to do a lot of fun makeup looks. But there are some looks that I'll do and I'll immediately wash off because I just don't want to go in public with it. So I wanted to discover like what are things I actually like and actually end up feeling like really good in, like I'm gonna go out in public and feel my best self. So I have like a lot of pictures to choose from, definitely more than the average person. But what I did was I basically went through selfies because it's using the same camera, often the same light, like near my window or these lights. And I just, made a little album of everything that was my favorite. And by favorite, just really what felt like I really love how that, makes me look. I mean, I guess that's pretty simple, but basically kind of asking yourself as you go through your photos, like, is this kind of a selfie I might be happy to post? So make an album on your phone and then you can have it all in one place and kind of flip through and you can definitely note if you're seeing a pattern here. But the next step to really getting that palette and having it like laid out in a grid is bringing it into like a graphics program. You can do this with something like Canva or PicMonkey. I use PicMonkey, and both of them you will be able to do this with the free version. In Canva, you will be able to download it for free, so I definitely recommend using Canva. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring these photos kind of one by one onto like a blank canvas, and you're going to take a graphic of like a little circle and use that color swatcher. This is available in both Canva and PicMonkey to start swatching out some of these colors, especially the ones you're really liking about a makeup look. Or you can do this with clothing as well, or even hair colors. Maybe you dye your hair a lot and you're just trying to really feel like which ones you love the best. You can literally swatch out the colors from the photo. Now you can actually get a similar effect if you swatch out the colors from product pictures. Maybe you don't have a ton of pictures of yourself, but you know that you like, say, Velvet Dragon from Lisa Eldridge. You can use that color swatcher and pick out parts of the tones of that lipstick. And we do have to bear in mind that colors look different in different lights, and there's a lot of depth and lightness within a single color. So you can pick from the shadow of an area or a lighter part, but no matter what, you're definitely going to find some kind of common thing happening. The amount of times I was swatching and it was like a warmish, deepish berry, kind of mauve, straddling that line, was like so many of them. Even though I felt like they looked different, the colors next to each other just started looking very similar. So I was seeing a trend there. You may also want to swatch your face because you're kind of picking up on what it is the color, how it translates on your face, because your undertone impacts the color. So I had a couple light blue makeup looks that I liked. When I swatched it, it was just translating like a little bit more periwinkle, a little bit more with a touch of lavender in it. And I kind of know I gravitate towards those colors a bit, but it was interesting to see how my complexion maybe kind of helps to shift a light blue to something potentially a little bit different. So you will definitely start to see something happening here, whether it's you have taste that's all over the place or it's you really have this sort of obsession with something. I was kind of mostly like, oh my gosh, everything I love is, like I said, like darker, warm berries and then, warm coppers and rich earthy tones, but then kind of these muted mid-tones to complement them. So at this point, you're gonna start getting a lot of colors. And I want you to definitely play with depth, get a lot of the shadows you tend to turn to, get some of the lighter tones, and you can always come back and change these things. To start, it's just like an outlook of everything. So get that depth, get that range, and then organize them as you see fit. You can get really OCD about this. You can get artsy about this. You can make these graphics, some of them bigger, like this is the color I like the most, and some little ones. Like you can really have fun with it. And I found the process just, really fun. And I enjoyed kind of like organizing it. Like, how am I going to find sort of similarities between some of these shades, kind of create a bit of a gradient. You don't have to do this. You could also keep it all over the place. Maybe that's your vibe. But I liked the idea of making it out like one of those palettes you see, like, here's the soft spring color palette. And what I also loved about this process is when you swatch a color, you can kind of see where it lands on the spectrum of a shade. You can see if it's landing on like the lighter end, the darker end, the brighter end, the more muted end. Because sometimes you'll see a color like something like a green, which I did for sure when I swatched one of these greens, and thought it seemed really bright, or it was like more of like an aqua-y shade. But then when I see it compared to if I slide the color over to what a true, vibrant turquoise would be, I could then see, oh, there is a lot of mutedness to this. So no wonder I gravitate towards it. And then what's fun is you could then play with some color combos you might not necessarily try out of instinct. You can make a copy of this document, for example, and have one where you kind of just slide the colors around. See how a light sage green is going to look with a dark terracotta, which is a color combo I love in person, but actually hadn't thought of combining with my makeup. But I've selected some shades that clearly I like in my makeup, so I should try this sometime. A sage green eye and a terracotta lip. And then what I did today, just before this, was create this makeup look out of the palette I had just made. And I really took the time to kind of figure out what I was seeing as a pattern, and I'll get into that in the next video, which is creating this makeup look if you're interested to see how I did it and how I took the palette and translated it into a makeup look. I think this is going to be really helpful for me going forward with anytime I'm looking at a new makeup product, although I don't need any, whether or not I'm really going to like it, whether it's really going to be a staple for me. I think this can be such a valuable resource for avoiding overspending potentially, or just really knowing if something's going to be a product you're going to use a lot or cherish. And I look forward to adding a little bit more color into my wardrobe. I do want to add more color, but I never know where to begin. And now that I have this palette, I can have it on hand on my phone and just be, browsing the internet or in a store or something. Like, should I try this on? Like, oh, let's take a chance, because almost everything I have is black. Yeah, I just really just enjoyed this process, and I hope it's inspired you to do the same. Make your own custom palette. I highly encourage it because, as I said, these color systems and color seasons can be just a little bit too limiting, and it's nice to have something you can fall back on that is uniquely yours. And it's nice to have something that just personally reflects your style. So that is it for this video today. Definitely stay tuned for me creating this makeup look, and let me know in the comments down below if you want me to do more explorations like this, more going into depth with custom palettes, or ways you can combine systems like color seasons with Kitchener style essences. It's the kind of nerdy stuff I love to get into with makeup and style. And I also love the idea of translating my custom palette or something into a gothic look, into some kind of themed look, because you can always take what you've learned and these basics and translate them into some other style exploration. Yep, that's it for today. Toasty, let's take it away. Thank you so much for sticking it out until the end. Toasty always appreciates it. And if you want to like, comment, and subscribe, that always helps. And check out my Patreon for bonus content. That's linked down below. And until next time, may you all find yourselves a little bit of makeup magic. And we will see you in the next video. Bye, witches.